Okay, item 3.4, request for exemption from the 50% law, Vice Chancellor Troy.
Yes.
Good morning, President Himmelstein, Chancellor Scott, members of the board. I did want to, before I get started, I did want to call to your attention. I do have one correction relevant to our recommendations today that I've put by everyone's chair. And this is a change in some data relevant to the categorical backfill that does impact the recommendation for redwoods. In the agenda report, we had been requesting a full exemption for redwoods. They are now down to a partial exemption due to this change in the data that we found just last night. So I'll draw that to your attention right away. So Education Code 84362, more commonly known as the 50% law, requires each district to spend at least half of its current expense of education on salaries and benefits of classroom instructors. Current expense of education generally includes the unrestricted general fund expenditures of a district with certain exemptions spelled out in in statute and or regulation. The Chancellor's Office and Board of Governors are responsible for monitoring compliance with the 50% law. A district that does not meet the requirement is responsible for providing our office with a plan as of June 30th to retire their unexempted amount, and to also show a plan as to how they're fulfilling that requirement in subsequent fiscal years. Districts are eligible to request exemptions from the board, assuming they have a public hearing on the issue on or before December 15th of each fiscal year, and provide appropriate data to our office for analysis. This year, we have 4 districts requesting exemptions. They are Compton, Redwoods, Palo Verde, and Hartnell. We are recommending full exemptions for Compton and Hartnell, and partial exemptions, as I noted earlier, for College of the Redwoods and Palo Verde. The areas by which a district may request exemption, as specified in statute and or regulation, are comparison of comparable salaries with the average of comparable districts, and also serious hardship. On the bottom of page 2 of your agenda item, we list those areas of serious hardship. I will draw your attention to 2 of those as they're relevant for today. Third on that list is for unanticipated expenditures that are unanticipated, unbudgeted, and necessary. Those can include costs such as unanticipated litigation, large increases in energy costs, insurance, et cetera, as described in the item. The other issue I'll draw to your attention today is number 5, the categorical program backfill. So this reflects a board made a determination that after the major reductions to categorical programs that our system sustained in 2009-10, that providing additional unrestricted general fund to back up support for those programs was an important issue to the board. So the board did approve, make that allowable exemption for districts. We do have representatives from each of the 4 districts here today to speak on their exemption. So would you like to go through each district one at a time? Would that be appropriate, or should we handle questions on an ad hoc basis?
What would the board prefer? I think that would be my preference to hear. Yes.
Very well. We'll start with attachment A on your agenda. Speaks to the request from the Compton Community College District. We have found that Compton is eligible for exemption for about $822,000 due to categorical backfill, and an additional $531,000 approximately for serious hardship related to unanticipated litigation, excuse me. So their full request through our recommendation would be granted. So if there are any questions on Compton, I would take those. Okay.
Okay.
If not, I'll move on to attachment B. This is Hartnell Community College District. In the case of Hartnell, they were requesting categorical backfill. We find that they are only partially eligible for exemption. They'll maintain an unexempted deficiency of about $15,000 after this. So we do have a calculation that determines a maximum amount of categorical backfill allowance, and they fall a little bit short of their full request on that score.
Member Baum.
What's a typical way a district retires the unaccounted for deficiency?
Well, they'd have to expend it on salaries for that year. And what they have to do in the case of Hartnell, if you were to approve this recommendation, they'd have this $15,000 unexempted deficiency for the 2010-11 year. By June 30th, they'd have to show us how they've retired that deficiency for 10-11, and also show us that they're meeting it for 11-12 as well, so that it hasn't carried forward. So it's
Can they give each
salary increases,
Right.
for
So they-
example, that would be a way of doing
Theoretically, they
it.
could give each member of the faculty a $200 bonus and
I-
retire it that way.
I suppose that's one way of doing it, yeah. That would be allowable.
Okay.
The next, attachment C, speaks to the request by Palo Verde. We essentially split their request into two. About half of it is categorical backfill. We find that they're eligible for a partial exemption for the categorical backfill. They fall about $10,000 short of a full exemption for that. They also requested.
Dan?
Yes.
Dan, could you just explain partial? So the chancellor's office sets a particular, I mean, what's the criteria when you say partial?
Yes, if you look at the this handout, the first
Yep.
page we have here,
Yep.
it walks you through the calculation of how we analyze requests for categorical backfill. And I think
Okay.
to make a long story short, what we do is we look at the difference, the proportionate reduction in state funding for categoricals that they've received. So, so if a district has 60% of the categoricals in the year relative to what they had before the cuts,
Yeah.
we set their minimum amount of unrestricted funding at that proportion for what they were spending
I see.
in that initial year.
Okay.
So any dollars above that 60% level, if that's their number, those are the amounts eligible for exemption.
Okay.
Vice President? Yeah, go ahead.
No, it's okay.
Okay. Member Belinsky.
What happens if they can't resolve the issue?
Well, we do, if they, once they find that they have an unexempted deficiency, we would ask the County Office of Education to withhold dollars of that amount until they resolve the plan. They are at danger of losing funds if they do not resolve the issue.
And in danger of what, the next year or 2 years? Because I'm just,
Yeah, we're looking at a year lag here. So this is the request for here are relative to the 10-11 year. So we would be taking money from the 11-12.
okay.
Speaking of a lag, I'm kind of stuck on the Compton one still. You mentioned that they had a $547,000 unexpected, I think that was legal fees, is that what you were saying, or liability, or?
That's correct. It was litigation resolving around illegal activities by faculty relative to, it was kind of a grade scandal regarding foreign students.
Is this something that's recent, not since the El Camino district has been with them? Or since El Camino?
It's since
has
El
been-
Camino, yes.
Okay, okay. And then that gets covered under, I guess, hardship, huh?
That's right.
Why don't all districts claim that with their legal moments?
Well, not all districts need to. We do, one of our attachments does have a breakdown of where all the districts are with 50%
Right.
for this year. So to
Right.
the extent you're over 50%, you
I
don't need to
guess-
make
I
the
see.
claim.
Okay,
So,
okay, all right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Proceed, Dan.
okay. Moving on then to attachment D, we note that that is the one that is amended.
Yeah.
That's College of the Redwoods. So they've requested 229,000 in categorical backfill. We find that they're only eligible for an amount of 186,000. So they would have an unexempted deficiency, which they would need to resolve this year, of almost $43,000.
I see. Okay. Huh? Okay.
And again, we do have representatives from each of the districts here, should you have more specific questions.
Board members, comments or questions, or would you like to hear from any of the particular colleges? Member McDougall.
I appreciate all the effort that has gone into this by Vice Chancellor Troy, and obviously, it's very technical and
Yes.
very complex. The only reason I would want to necessarily hear from the districts is whether they contest any information that draws the conclusion the Vice Chancellor has come to. Otherwise, my feeling would be to support the conclusions of the Vice Chancellor.
Okay. Do any of the colleges wish to speak? No. Okay. Then I will, oh, we do have a speaker. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We do have a speaker, Dr. Ron Norton-Real from CCA-CTA.
Good morning, everyone. First, I would like to thank Member Heimelstein for attending our COFO meeting that we had to discuss our concerns about the Board of Governors Student Success Task Force recommendations and where it's going. I don't think I heard that this morning. But I do want to share with you the concern that I have about the continued exemptions that we give the districts regarding the 50% law. The 50% law is a law that says you should be spending the 50%. As our Vice Chancellor said to you, we can show you where all of the districts sit in regards to the 50%. None of the districts are above 55 or 56%. All of them almost hover around the 50% to begin with. So when we give exemptions, what we're saying is that it really doesn't matter because you don't have to be at 50%. And the other thing that I think that I don't know that you read, but if you read all of the details, is that there are the faculty associations at some of these schools that are saying, we are asking you not to give the exemption. So when we turn to our own people out in the trenches, there's not solidarity in the fact whether this should happen or not. Myself personally, I say if there's a 50% law, live by it. But sometimes this was created because sometimes there are gigantic problems that might come about, as you ask, in terms of was there this significant amount of litigation? If litigation takes place, there should be somewhere in our budgets that should accommodate such actions. So I'm here to ask on behalf at least Hartnell, because the faculty asked that, and we do represent them, that it not be granted to Hartnell, because we believe that there are enough in their collective bargaining, in terms of the monies that they have, and in terms of the specific recommendation from the people at the local to not do it. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? Member Reed?
Except for Compton, have we seen these colleges before us on this 50% rule in the past? Is it
At least going back the last 10 or 12 years, we did an analysis of the districts who've asked for exemptions. I believe Compton would be the only repeat district today.
Okay. Scott Lay.
Scott Lay on behalf of the Community College League. Aside from the Compton legal settlement issue, which is a separate issue, the three colleges are only asking for the specific relief that has been previously agreed to by all constituents around Consultation Council, and that is to allow for the backfill of the categorical programs that were cut in 2009-10. That's the only exemption that's being asked for to protect EOPS, matriculation, CalWorks, DSPS, and I think that's just very clear to put out there. We're not asking for blanket exemptions.
Member Ramos?
Yes, thank you. I guess I have a question for clarification regarding Mr. Leal's claims on behalf of, I think it was Hartnell, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes.
It would seem to me if there is a faculty position on this, in addition to a verbal presentation, that we should have some documentation or paperwork on that. Is that part of our normal process, or? Because it seems to me like in making a judgment on this, although I think that Mr. Lay's comments are instructive on this as well, if there's opposition to this and there's some substantive reason behind that opposition, for the board to make an informed decision about this, it might be useful to be able to entertain that. But getting the information on the spot at the time of the vote verbally without, more behind it, it makes it difficult for me to feel that I can consider that.
I've not received any communication from the Hartnell faculty that I'm aware of, and you all know that we certainly do get plenty of mail and email on various issues. I don't know if the Chancellor's office has or not.
My
Dan?
inclination generally is to, listen carefully to the Chancellor's recommendations, and
Yeah.
I will heed that on this one, but is there any, Chancellor, is there anything that you've seen in the review process that would suggest a substantive reason to reconsider this, or was that considered in your?
Well, I don't have a communication. I will remind the board that we anticipated this possibility because when the severe cuts occurred and that had to do with categorical programs, if you remember that these cuts were, even though there was an 8% cut, overall there was about a 30 to 40% cut of categorical programs. So you said that you would grant, or you would consider granting a waiver if, when we add back in those categorical programs, if that threw the district into a violation of the 50% law, because those categorical programs, such as EOPS, CalWorks, and a whole host of other categorical programs, were often considered by districts to be very important to student success, the kind of support that they give. So that's, I can only refer back to this discussion that this board had agreed to, that they would entertain. Now, we didn't say it was automatic. We said they had to come and seek a waiver. And so that's what they're doing now, as I understand it, with the exception of Compton, which has another reason, but that most of these have to do with categorical programs that were restored. Is that correct, Vice Chancellor?
Certainly that is the bulk of the request we see today. And in specific response to your question about the faculty, we did not receive a written communication from them. They did call Assistant Vice Chancellor Harris last week to voice that concern. And we did hear from them in consultation.
Ron,
Documentation.
pardon me, Ron?
On the attachment B, on your own documentation at the bottom, it says the Hartnell College Faculty Association opposed the application for exemption at the district's public hearing, and the Hartnell Academic Senate expressed concern on the issues also. So to say that you hadn't heard about this seems a little bit either naive or what other reason.
What I said is that I had not received direct communication from the Hartnell faculty addressed to me in the Board of Governors capacity.
Yeah, all I just want to say in concluding on this is that, unless there's something that comes before this board, at least speaking for myself as a member, that gives me pause to not go with the Chancellor's recommendations on these kinds of matters, I don't feel that I can entertain that sort of information. It's difficult.
Okay. Vice President Perez.
To do that.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Seconded by Member Reed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion carries. We are going to break for lunch and resume right around 1 o'clock or so.